So today I'm going to be starting the installation for the van, but before I can start doing that, I just want to get rid of these cables here that are on the surface. The reason I need to get rid of these cables is because when I come to install the wall panels later, I want to install the wall panels as close as possible to the metal and not to lose space in the van. So what I'm going to do is snip the cables here, which will allow me to reroute the cables behind here all the way through to the end, and also do exactly the same thing with this loom running through here. I'll take it back and run it within the metal of the van behind here, and then reconnect everything back here again with some crimps.
Coming back from work, I'm gonna see what Liam is up to. Hey baby. I was gonna see the floor all done. Liam has been rerouting the factory cables today. So we were discussing how we want to organize the cables, how we want to hide them within the inner walls of the van. And we had quite a good idea how we want to do it, and we had a plan in mind, and we were just gonna go home and have dinner and call it a day. But we just realized that we cannot lock the van because we don't have electrics. So yeah, there is no way to lock your van if you don't have electrics working. So now we are gonna have to stay here probably up to quite late to get everything reconnected. I probably can't do much, so my job is to order food.
Food now.
I don't have a job anymore. This was going to be my job, to hold the torch for you.
So all the cables have been cut and rerouted within the voids of the van. There were a lot more cables than I was expecting. As a lot of them had the same colours as well, which makes it a lot more complicated. So I put little marks with a black pen on the cables many times. So hopefully the marks are still on the cables, otherwise we're screwed.
How is it going?
It's just crazy, isn't it? All this wiring.
Delivery has arrived. Baby, this is our first dinner in the van. I don't think we will be having a dinner here this soon.
Well, not the first cooked meal. Can't imagine this many sensors in a fire.
Still a long way to go, lots of cables. I'm just here for moral support. Liam is doing all the work. How much longer do you reckon?
A couple of hours.
Babe, how are you feeling? We are leaving the van at 1 AM in the morning.
1 AM this morning.
Sorry?
1 AM this morning.
Well, yeah, that's
Definitely say an AM.
1 AM then. I like to be even more specific. I'm so cold.
Cheers, cheers.
We definitely need loads of insulation in the van. We had a little big problem. We disconnected all the cables that came with the van just to reroute them and to connect them again. So this morning Liam realized that one of the fuses was blowing up and the car is showing an issue, it's having an issue with the parking sensor. And so we've been spending, especially him, the last quite a few hours trying to find out what the problem is. He redo most of the connections, but it's still failing, and it's really hard to tell which of these connections could be the problem, because as you can see, they all look the same. Quite easy to make a mistake here, and we cannot find out what the issue is. We saw that some of the cables were a bit broken, but it is a bit unlikely that they were touching the metal. It was not a good idea to mess around with the cables, with the electrics of the van, but it was quite important for us. If we left the cables as they were, it will have meant that we will have to accommodate the insulation around the cables, and the walls will be thicker. To find out where the bad connection was, we used a current meter. We should have used a clamp meter, but we didn't have one, so we used a current meter to see if there was any high current draw on any of the cables, because the fuse kept blowing. Now this.
Let me know when you're ready. Hey, so it hasn't been a good couple of days since trying to move cables here. So initially, after cutting them, it took about, I'd say, 8 hours to reconnect them all. A lot longer than I was anticipating, and that took until 1 in the morning. And the reason I kept going was that I realised that I couldn't lock the van once I cut through this loom of cables. So I had no choice really but to carry on and get them all connected before I could finish for the day. I didn't really want to leave the van unlocked on the road overnight. So I got it all reconnected, and it seemed to be working okay. The van locked and I was fairly happy. But when I come back the next day I turned the ignition on to check there were no warning lights or anything, because I've been cutting through so many cables, you just never know if something's gone wrong or the wrong cable's been connected to something. Anyway, it turns out that there was a problem. The car was telling me to check car pilot. I didn't really know what this was, so I googled it and found out that it's related to the parking assist system and parking sensors. I knew the van had parking sensors, but I didn't know it had a parking assistant function, so that was, it's a good thing, I suppose, to find that out. So anyway, I spent, say, almost 2 days going through the connections, checking them, double checking them, checking them again, and everything seemed okay. I found one cable that I hadn't connected, but it wasn't that. So I kept checking them. I was almost at the stage of accepting that I'm not going to have parking sensors on the van anymore, because I was getting really frustrated. And but luckily someone came to the rescue. I got talking to the guy that just lives next to where I'm doing the van. He happens to be a car mechanic, has a lot of experience with car electrics and things like that, and he managed to find the schematic drawing for the van. Told me to concentrate on looking for a particular cable, which was the blue and brown cable, of which there are 4. So I started to look at those more closely, and that's when I realised that one blue and brown cable had been crossed over with another blue and brown cable. The reason I noticed that the size of the cable was ever so slightly different, but just a tiny bit. So after I changed the cable back, put a new fuse in, the warning lights had gone, so massive relief. We have parking sensors and the car pilot system is all working again. So yeah, I lost 2 days with that, but now I can start on a bigger job, which is laying the floor insulation. To do that, first of all, I'm going to use